Friday the 13th. A day often associated with bad luck, superstitions, and dark magical happenings, and only happens 1 to 3 times per year. Many may know the date, from the slasher movie franchise, Friday the 13th, featuring Jason Voorhees. But did you know that this date has a history of tragedies that spans back to the 1300s? Join us, as we take a look at some of the worst disasters that occurred on this mysterious date. The debate on whether the day, Friday the 13th holds any superstitious credibility has been the subject of many arguments for hundreds of years. Before we jump into the more modern disasters that have occurred, here are what some believe to be the origins of this mysterious date. In Norse mythology, the unlucky nature of the number 13 is a Norse myth about 12 gods having a dinner party in Valhalla. The trickster god Loki, who was not invited, arrived as the 13th guest, and arranged for Hoda to shoot Balder with a mistletoe-tipped arrow. Balder died, and the whole earth got dark. This major event in Norse mythology caused the number 13 to be considered unlucky. In Christianity, the superstition seems to relate to various incidents, but one instance in particular was Jesus' Last Supper and crucifixion, in which there were 13 individuals present in the upper room on the 13th of Nisan Maundy, Thursday, the night before his death on Good Friday. With that, here are some tragic accidents and occurrences that have happened on this mysterious date. Our first incident happened on October 13, 1307. The Knights Templar were an elite fighting force of their day, highly trained, well-equipped, and highly motivated. One of the tenets of their religious order was that they were forbidden from retreating in battle, unless outnumbered 3 to 1, and even then only by order of their commander, or if the Templar flag went down. At dawn on Friday, October 13, 1307, scores of French Templars were simultaneously arrested by agents of King Philip, later to be tortured in locations such as the Tower at Chinon, into admitting heresy and other sacrilegious offenses in the order. Then they were put to death. Next up, Sam Patch. Sam Patch, born on November 13, 1799, became the first famous American daredevil after successfully jumping from a raised platform into the Niagara River near the base of Niagara Falls in 1829. After a disappointing amount of money raised from a jump, Sam decided to raise the height of the jump to 125 feet by constructing a 25-foot stand. On Friday, November 13, 1829, in front of 8,000 spectators, Sam attempted the jump. A loud impact was heard and he never surfaced. His frozen body was found in the ice in Charlotte early the next spring, and an autopsy revealed that the sudden change in the temperature of the atmosphere as he descended down the fall had caused his blood vessels to rupture. For our next disaster, the bombing of Buckingham Palace. On the morning of Friday, September 13, 1940, King George VI and Queen Elizabeth were having tea, when they heard a rumble and a crash. A German raider had dropped 5 high-explosive bombs on the palace. The Royal Chapel, Inner Quadrangle, Palace Gates, and the Victoria Memorial were all hit by the bombs. There were 4 members of the palace staff that were injured, one of whom would die. In a letter, Queen Elizabeth described how she heard the unmistakable whirring of a German plane and the scream of a bomb. Thankfully, the king and queen went unharmed in the incident. Up next, the Catalina Affair. The Catalina Affair was a military confrontation and Cold War-era diplomatic crisis that took place on Friday, June 13, 1952, in which Soviet fighter jets shot down 2 Swedish aircraft over international waters in the Baltic Sea. The first aircraft to be shot down was an unarmed Swedish Air Force TP-79, a derivative of the Douglas DC-3, carrying out radio and radar signals, intelligence gathering for the National Defense Radio Establishment. None of the crew of 8 was rescued. The second aircraft to be shot down was a Swedish Air Force TP-47, a Catalina flying boat, involved in the search and rescue operation for the missing DC-3. The Catalina's crew of 5 were saved, and the Soviet Union publicly denied involvement until its dissolution in 1991. For our next disaster. Flight 571. Uruguayan Air Force Flight 571 was the chartered flight of a Fairchild FH-227D from Montevideo, Uruguay, to Santiago, Chile, that crashed in the Andes Mountains on Friday, October 13, 1972. The accident and subsequent survival became known as the Andes flight disaster. Due to inexperience, the co-pilot, Lieutenant Colonel Dante Hector Laguerara, caused the aircraft to strike a mountain, shearing off both the wings and the tail section. The remaining portion of the fuselage slid down a glacier at an estimated 220 miles per hour and descended about 2,379 feet before crashing into ice and snow. The flight was carrying 45 passengers and crew. 3 crew members and 9 passengers died immediately, while several more died soon afterward due to the frigid temperatures and the severity of their injuries. The wreck was located at an elevation of 11,710 feet in the remote Andes of far western Argentina, just east of the border with Chile. Authorities flew over the crash site several times during the following days, searching for the aircraft, but could not see the white fuselage against the snow. Search efforts were cancelled after 8 days. During the following 72 days, the survivors suffered extreme hardships, including exposure, starvation and an avalanche, which led to the deaths of 13 more passengers. The remaining passengers resorted to cannibalism. As the weather improved with the arrival of late spring, 2 survivors, Nando Paradu and Roberto Canessa, climbed a 15,260-foot mountain peak without gear and hiked for 10 days into Chile to seek help, traveling 38 miles. On December 23, 1972, 2 months after the crash, the last of the 16 survivors were rescued, creating a worldwide media circus. For our final tragedy. The Costa Concordia. The Costa Concordia was a cruise ship operated by Costa Crociere. On Friday, January 13, 2012, she struck a rock in the Tyrrhenian Sea just off the eastern shore of Isola del Giglio. This tore open a 160-foot gash on the port side of her hull, which soon flooded parts of the engine room, cutting power from the engines and ship services. As water flooded in and the ship listed, she drifted back towards the island and grounded near shore, then rolled onto her starboard side, lying in an unsteady position on a rocky underwater ledge. The evacuation of Costa Concordia took over 6 hours, and of the 3,229 passengers and 1,023 crew known to have been aboard, 32 died. Francesco Scatino, the ship's captain at that time, was tried and found guilty of manslaughter, causing a maritime accident, and abandoning his ship. He was sentenced to 16 years in prison in 2015. The wreck was salvaged 3 years after the incident and then towed to the port of Genoa, where she was scrapped. Here's an extra entry that pertains to the future. On Friday, April 13, 2029, scientists say that 99942 Apophis, an asteroid that is 1,210 feet in diameter, will collide with Earth. So, what do you think about all the disasters that occurred on a Friday the 13th? Coincidence or something more? Drop a comment and let me know. Thank you for watching.